I've chosen to organize this online companion course to my book by answering the most commonly asked questions that have come up after people have read the book. I like the word companion. It means one with whom you eat bread, like pan in Spanish. It's pretty simple. Companioning somebody just means being with them. In Christian terms, eating bread, the breaking of the bread, is one of the basic things that we do in experiencing God in our midst. So, anyway, I like the word companion. I'd like to think of you as a companion, whether we've met in person or we haven't. If we haven't, and we want to, there'll be all eternity to do that, I believe. Anyway, the process that I use is a category that I'm going to deal with in this module. People often have questions, and one of the first ones is, why do you think you were chosen to do this? This work is unusual. Why were you chosen to do it? Well, my first impulse is to say, I don't know. Why are you living your life the way you're living it? Aren't there some things that make only partial sense to you? Why do some people have a lot of athletic talent and others have little? Or why are some musically inclined or have facility in languages and so on? There just seems to be such a mystery about the way we arrive here and what are our skills or competencies that we've been given. I believe that the Holy Spirit started asking me to do this work. I was presented with it. And particularly because it involves human suffering, it was hard for me to turn away when it landed right at my doorstep or in my bedroom in the middle of the night. It's one thing for us to wish we could do more for the homeless or the mentally ill or for refugees or people suffering in foreign countries. But aren't most of us urged to action when there's a situation right in front of us that presents itself and looks like, for whatever reason, we're it? We're simply chosen to respond to what's right before us. And that's what happened to me. I was just asleep and had a dream that I knew immediately was not my dream content. It wasn't my psychobabble. Yes, it occurred. The material was presenting itself in the form of a dream, but I knew right away that it wasn't my dream content. Someone was reaching into my consciousness in sleep and crying out in need. Why was I chosen? I don't know. I don't care. I've done many things in my life. Though this came as a surprise to me, I just accepted it and went on. The process in general is receiving a dream. I've made the distinction in the book between what I call having a dream, which is my normal dreamscape, my psyche cycling through whatever it's doing in the night, and receiving a dream, receiving someone else's material so that I might help them. The normal course for me is that about 4 times a month I have a night visitor. They're not always interspersed evenly. Sometimes they'll come in spurts. The material is usually brief. Sometimes it's very brief. Other times, it's like a small video that shows me the material behind the person behind the wheel of a car as it leaves the highway, or falling down a flight of stairs, or being shot, or whatever. There's some sort of a plot line in which a person shows me the trauma that caused their death. Once in a while, the event isn't the person's actual death, but it might have been a kind of partial death. One showed me that a part of her died the day that she was made paraplegic. That's what she wanted to show me. Another showed me the day that she accidentally killed a child by backing up over it in her car. That wasn't the day she died, but it was the day her life blew up. Almost always what I see in the dream is a person's actual death scene. Once in a while, it's a kind of a metaphoric death of a dream, or death of a way of life, or a death of part of the body. I sit up in bed and I write the dream down in a journal that I keep on the nightstand. Because this has happened for over 20 years, I just know always to keep that journal handy. I also have sleep apnea, so I have one of those CPAP machines that helps us breathe. It's my routine when I get ready for bed at night to make sure the CPAP machine is all functioning and ready to go. I have my glass of water, maybe a book, certainly my journal, all at the ready on the nightstand before I go unconscious into sleep. So when I have a dream, I wake up, I write it down as quickly as I can, then I sit up and pray. I call out in the Holy Spirit to the person who has just been in my dream and say, "Hey, I'm Nathan. This is what I received." And I try to say it out loud as I'm writing it down. Help me recall anything in better detail before it gets away from me. As you know, sometimes dream material can dissipate very quickly. So I try to do the best I can to remember the dream quickly and get it in writing. When I can, I get with a prayer partner. I try not to let there be too much time between receiving the dream and making an appointment with a prayer partner. When we get together, the prayer partner and I say our prayers. I'll go into that in more detail in a later module. One question I'm sometimes asked is, do I see the person or the soul of the person? Well, visually, I don't see an awful lot. I think maybe once in my life I might have seen an apparition, what others might simply call a ghost. Most of what I see is interior. It's in my dreams. So it's visual, but it's not an exterior vision. It's an internal one. When I'm allowing someone to be in my consciousness in the daytime, when I'm helping someone cross over, that is when I'm with one of my prayer partners, I don't see much of anything. That would be clairvoyance. And that's a gift that's kind of a minor one for me. It would be in the background. Once in a while that might come into play. I'm what is sometimes called clairsentient. That is, I can feel things. It's tactile. I feel energy and warmth and presence. I can feel a spirit person's relative age or their gender a lot of the time. Am I clairaudient? That is, do I hear voices? Sometimes. In this process with a prayer partner, we invite the person who we're trying to help cross to move into me, to borrow my voice and speak to my prayer partner. That's about as simply as I can explain it. Another question that comes up, do I see the stuck souls that I'm helping while I'm helping them? I wouldn't say that I see them directly. They often describe what they're seeing. They're doing that inside me, so it feels a little like vision, But really, I think the simple answer would be no. I don't see so much as I am given a description of what the person inside me is seeing. It's a kind of seeing, but it's kind of once removed. The one speaking through me might describe to me, for example, when we ask them to invite a person they trust to come for them. Sometimes I'll see a figure of the person, but mostly I experience them as described by the person who's seeing them directly. I hope that answers that question. Do I feel the spirit of the soul near me? Yes, I do, especially at the beginning of the process. After the prayer partner and I have gone into our protective prayer, then we get settled and quiet. I invite the person to come to me. If they want to, they move into me so that they can borrow my voice to make their needs known. When that happens, sometimes there's a kind of sitting and waiting. The thing that I'm usually waiting for is the feeling. It's not visual or auditory. It really is tactile. I feel a presence. It feels something like the way that a person might approach from a distance and they come into sharper focus as you can see them more plainly. Or a person who might be speaking at a distance can be heard more clearly as they approach you. It's sort of like that. I get a feeling of someone moving toward me, and the feeling gets stronger as they get nearer until I can feel that they're right next to me. And then I invite them within. I only do that after protective prayer. But I feel safe in doing so, even though some think that it's just an inherently dangerous practice. I know that it can be, but I've been kept safe through this process over 20 years. So it really is about feeling their presence. That feeling comes with an emotional charge. Sometimes the first thing I feel is that a person is hesitant, perhaps fearful. Not so fearful that they can't do it, but some people are more reticent than others. Think of like a high dive or something. People who are going to be doing the same thing might approach it with great freedom or great reticence, or something in between. Anyway, along with that feeling sometimes comes a sense of gender, a sense of age or ethnicity, a sense of adventure, or something like introversion or extroversion. Sometimes I can feel confusion or excitement. It's really hard to describe, but I'm doing the best that I can. For me, a lot of it's feeling, it's tactile. Another question is, what does it feel like for them when a person is speaking through you? Well, it changes. For one thing, these are almost always people that I haven't ever met before. There's some getting to know you that's a part of any first-time experience of a new person. It's unusual in that it's an intimate interaction because, first of all, I'm allowing them to come and be inside my consciousness. Most of them have never done this before, and it's all in the moment. There's a learning curve, but everybody's learning to do something while they're doing it for the first time. If you've read my book, you know that sometimes it's necessary that their guardian go first. In my Catholic tradition, we call them guardian angels. Others simply use the word guardian or the phrase guardian spirit or spirit guide. Sometimes their guardian angels speak first simply to do what I call a microphone test. They simply want to model for the one in their care what this is like, to assure them that borrowing my voice is not difficult. They're saying, just do it like this, watch me. They typically don't stay very long or say very much. They're just there to model what the process is like and to show the one in their care how easy it is. Once they're within, I don't know, it just depends. I can really be delightful after you've gotten to know a person and you get a sense of their sense of humor, their sense of irony. The reason that they're in me at all is to be able to speak. I'm really giving them voice. And I've learned that they're limited to my vocabulary. So if someone wanted to come into me and speak in a foreign language, well, they're out of luck because I only speak English. I have fragments of Spanish. I know some etymology in Latin and Greek and so on, but I'm nobody's idea of a linguist. So really, if you're going to use my voice, you're limited to speaking in English. Now, that doesn't mean that people who do this have to be native English speakers or English speakers at all. That's really not the case. In the afterlife, apparently, we'll have a common language, although we still have what we bring. Sometimes people will want to use a word that might be available in their native language that's not available to me, and they simply have to work around it. But they find a way. What does it feel like again? It's funny because sometimes I'll have phrases, idioms, turns of a phrase, a way of saying things, and a person will borrow it, use it, and then almost at the same moment say, wow, I've never said that before. I've never used that word. I've never used that phrase. There's some sort of an overlap or borrowing that can be sort of funny or ironic. Slang, for example. It changes over time. I habitually don't cry. I have a pretty narrow emotional range, even when I'm sad or upset. I think that came from my upbringing as a guy growing up in Texas where big boys don't cry. I think I learned that message so well that I'm not very often given to tears. Sometimes people want to cry while they're inside me, and I have to give them permission. I do so, but even when I do, I don't turn into a blubbering puddle of tears. I might get a little misty or choked up, but usually people aren't here borrowing my voice so that they can have a good cry. They're really trying to communicate a message. So even if they might need to be a little emotional around it, they're really trying hard to give voice and use language to describe the emotions that they're feeling. So I think it all works out. Here's another question. Do my folks talk this way, or am I paraphrasing them? I chose to write the book in a dialogic form. As time went on, I started using a recording app on my phone when being in a prayer session. That made it possible, first of all, to not have to recall a lot of things later and spend a lot more time writing prose to recall what happened. I could just get it transcribed, and then I would have my stuck souls in their own words. So simply, yes, I don't do very much changing around, only a little light edit. The words in my book are largely the words that came from the people who spoke them. I chose to ask the permission of the 13 people who are the center of the stories that are recounted in the book. Why did I feel the need to get their permission? Well, because the material was very personal. Was it private? Private and personal aren't always the same thing. Well, that's the question. I didn't really know whether it was private or not. And if it was private, I didn't want to violate that. So I thought, yes, they're personal stories. Do I have the authority to tell them? I won't know unless I ask. I just felt that it was respectful to ask. So one day, my prayer partner, Laura, got tired of hearing me mull this question over in my mind as a kind of ethical dilemma. She said, "Why don't you just ask them? They spoke to you once, maybe they would speak to you again." So we simply called a meeting. We sat down with a sheet of paper and chose the 13 stories that we wanted to include in the book. In fact, we were trying to do just 12. And then Hal, the last one, Hal just kept coming to mind. I thought, this seems like kind of a persistent knocking. The Holy Spirit sometimes works this way. And so we expanded it to 13. My friend Hal got in there kind of under the wire. Nevertheless, we called, we made a list, we said our prayers, and said, here, we want these 13 people to come. It was sort of like a waiting room, I suppose. We just said, we're not going to spend too long with any one of you. All we really want to do is ask you a question, yes or no. May we use your story? I would have been just as happy to hear yes or no, because when I ask yes or no questions, I don't do that until I'm ready to receive yes or no as an answer. I don't think it's fair to ask a yes or no question and then be angry at the reply that you get. That's manipulative. We simply asked the question, may we use your story? In 12 out of 13 cases, we got an unqualified yes. Then, in one case, we had a person kind of draw us into a conversation about the pros and cons of it. In the end, she decided that we could change her first name for the purposes of publication. The second contact came about not because we wanted to have curious, chatty conversations with the dead, but because we had a really important question to ask. May we include your story in a book?